A family ran barefoot through the forest, their breath shaking, chased by the only world they had ever known. They weren't escaping a place. They were escaping a belief. For 27 years, this family lived inside a cult so hidden, so isolated, that no one on the outside even knew it existed. No government records, no phone signals. Not even their relatives knew if they were still alive. Deep in the remote mountains of Oregon stood a set of imposing wooden gates no map had ever marked. Behind them lived a group that called themselves the Pure, a community convinced that the outside world was a realm of pure evil, a place to be feared and avoided at all costs. The cult began with a man named Elias Thorne. He was a charismatic preacher who claimed that he, and only he, held the key to saving their souls. But his power didn't come from faith. It came from fear. He built his kingdom on terror, isolating his followers until his word was the only truth they knew. Every member who joined was forced to surrender everything. Their name, their past, their entire identity. It was a complete erasure of who they were before. Children were born into this world, registered only in Elias's worn-out notebook, their existence completely unknown to the rest of the world. They were ghosts, living and breathing, but with no official proof they were ever born. Among these followers was the Hale family, Sarah, Daniel, and their 3 young children, who had never seen a city, a car, or a stranger. Their entire world was contained within those wooden gates. It was a world of dirt floors, whispered prayers, and a complex web of rules carved into wooden signs posted everywhere. No electricity, no books, other than the ones Elias wrote himself. Laughter was forbidden if it rose above a whisper. Even looking at the sky was a sin. They were taught that the sunlight itself carried a poison from the corrupt world outside. Life was a constant state of vigilance. Every mistake, no matter how small, brought punishment. Silence became their primary tool for survival. Crying wasn't allowed. Tears were seen as a sign of spiritual weakness, a sin against the Pure's teachings. The children learned to swallow their sadness before it could ever form a tear. Then, one brutal winter, the food began to run out. The carefully constructed reality that fear had built started to crack under the gnawing pressure of hunger. It was during this desperate time that Daniel heard Ita sounds piercing through the suffocating silence of their valley. It was the roar of an airplane passing high overhead, a sound like freedom itself. That single, distant noise shattered a lifetime of lies. It was concrete proof that the outside world wasn't dead, wasn't a wasteland of ash and poison like Elias had claimed for decades. A spark of hope ignited in Daniel's Mendadeños, rebellious thought, but one that was impossible to extinguish. While Daniel wrestled with this new reality, Sarah began a quiet rebellion of her own. She started secretly teaching her children the most forbidden act of all, to ask questions. She knew that questions are like keys, and even the most heavily locked doors can eventually break if you keep turning the key. The family began to plan. They weren't just thinking about leaving. They were preparing for it. They studied the guards, memorizing their patrol routes and the exact timing of their shifts. They started hiding tiny crumbs of bread, stashing away what little they could for the journey ahead. Their plan was stark in its simplicity. Run or slowly die inside this prison of belief. On a moonless, pitch-black night, they made their move. They slipped through a broken section of the fence they had discovered weeks earlier, their breath held tight in their chests, their bare feet freezing on the cold ground. It wasn't long before their absence was noticed. Behind them, the chilling sound of alarm bells began to echo through the valley. Elias knew his souls were missing. They ran. They ran until their legs were torn and bleeding from branches and thorns, but they didn't dare look back. Looking back meant letting doubt creep in, and doubt meant returning to that cage. After what felt like an eternity, a strange, beautiful light appeared through the trees. It looked like stars that had fallen to earth and real, glowing and impossible. It was a highway. A truck slowed to a stop. The driver rolled down his window, and the Hale family saw the first stranger they had ever met. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice gentle, spoken in a language of kindness they hadn't heard in years. That simple question, that small act of compassion, was the beginning of their new life. The police were called. Investigators soon swarmed the hidden valley, crashing through the gates that had kept the world out for so long. The cult of the Pure collapsed almost overnight, like a secret finally spoken aloud, its power dissolving in the light of day. Members were freed, blinking like nocturnal animals suddenly thrust into the sun. Some were relieved, but others begged to stay. For them, the prison they knew felt safer than the frightening, unknown world. For the Halle family, freedom wasn't an instant celebration. It was a dizzying, overwhelming confusion. They had to relearn life from scratch, from navigating the bright, loud aisles of a grocery store to the simple act of choosing their own clothes. The children laughed with pure, unadulterated joy the first time they tasted ice cream, a Miraklina Kone. Sarah cried when she saw shelves overflowing with food, a tangled mess of grief for the years lost and overwhelming joy for what was now possible. But Daniel carried a heavy guilt, a weight that felt like a second skin. He felt guilty for believing the lies, for staying so long, for allowing his family to live in fear. They learned that healing isn't a quick fix. It's a slow, painstaking process that lasts a lifetime. Today, the Halle family lives far away, under new names that no cult will ever touch again. Their greatest dream isn't fame or fortune. It's just to be ordinary. They find joy in the mundane things they were once denied: a family dinner, a sunny day at the park, the freedom to laugh as loud as they want. And somewhere, in those forgotten mountains, the ashes of the Pure sit beneath a blanket of moss and silence, a quiet reminder of how easily fear can build a prison, waiting, perhaps, for the next lost soul who just needs something to belong to. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more true stories that uncover the hidden corners of our world. We'll see you in the next one.